I'm hearing reports that police in Portland are disrespectful to journalists. I believe it's probably a fact. I've seen journalists get, shot at and tear gassed and all that stuff. I believe that is absolutely happening. I believe the police are mostly wrong to do it, but I also recognize that this is normal. It doesn't need to be, but I don't know if there's a way to stop it from happening. I want to show you this story. Federal agents likely permanently blinded by Portland protesters' lasers, White House says. And there's a photo of a cop getting a powerful green laser pointed at his face. These things do cause permanent blindness. In fact, they can start fires. There's a reason why I'm showing you this and why I'm not going to hyper-focus on, say, one journalist who gets pushed around by the police. It's because I've covered this on the ground, and you have to think big picture. You have to be objective. You have to try and understand why it's all happening. Why is it that police have disdain, it would seem, for journalists? For the most part, I think they just don't care. There's a group of people in front of me. All of them have cameras. Move. We have to clear the street. There's a court order saying that they can't target journalists. They've not been. You can argue that they do, but let me tell you, back in 2012, I was standing on the sidewalk in Anaheim. There was no protest. There was no riot. I was with one other person. Some people ran across the street, and the cops started firing less lethal munitions at us, beanbags and pepper balls, for no reason. And this was wrong. Did I start screaming and cussing? No. Am I mad about it? Yes. I don't like that they did this. What we're seeing in Portland is not that, for the most part. Some people have been hit. What we're seeing is police being seriously injured and even maimed in some circumstances. I don't know if you can call being blinded maiming. I think that counts. The officer in Seattle had an explosive thrown and it detonated on his leg and he'd be rushed to the hospital. And we're seeing cops being hit in the head with bricks and rocks. And you know what? This is what comes with conflict. There are rules, right? But if you think you're going to enter a riot or conflict zone and both sides are going to take this like a turn-based strategy game where it's like the cop goes, okay, I'm going to target protester at A5 with, pepper barrage, pop, 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 your turn. Okay, that's insane. It's not going to happen. What's going to happen is there's going to be journalists with Antifa pretending to be journalists walking around, and they're going to get shoved and they're going to get hit because it's chaos. This is the problem with when it comes to even 2A arguments from, left-wingers. They don't understand that when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't know how you will respond. And you're probably going to miss when you do shoot. It happened in New York. Some guy walked out of a building after killing his boss and some coworkers or something. And the cops ran up and started firing and they missed hitting 7 people. And the cops are supposedly trained, probably not trained well enough, but you can't just assume you will react properly. And that's why we have leeway on these things. If cops are being maimed and ambushed, and there's a photo going around of a guy wearing press on his helmet, waving an Antifa flag. So these people are using it to disguise themselves. They pretend to be medics and they'll pretend to be journalists. And there are real journalists and there are real medics. But how do you know? The cops don't, and guess what? They're not going to care because people are attacking them. Should they? Yes, I wish they could, but I cannot pretend that following 3 officers being, in all likelihood, permanently blinded by rioters, that you are going to get this utopian view of the cops walking down the street saying, time to go home, protester. And they go, you got me. Excuse me, journalist. Sorry, I'm in your way. No, they're going to be like, crowd of people, GTFO now or else. Again, I don't like it. But what do you expect to happen when people are throwing bricks, explosives, and other things? They're not going to sit around and wait. They're not going to wait to get ambushed. 3 federal agents who were sent to Portland to try and help quell the unrest were, quote, likely left permanently blinded from clashes. A federal agent's hand was impaled by planted nails. Another agent was shot with a pellet gun, leaving a wound deep to the bone. And tragically, 3 federal officers were likely left permanently blinded, according to Kaylee McEnany. Let me tell you, I could do a video every single time some protester got bumped on the noggin or shoved down or arrested. I do not believe that makes the most sense for several reasons. For one, people who choose to engage in conflict, okay? It is not surprising to me that if you go down there, this will happen. What do you want me to say? Group of people who specifically cover riots, who have experience covering riots and know exactly what happens in riots, are shocked that they're experiencing what happens in a riot? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I expected no sympathy from anybody when I got fired at in Anaheim. I went down there, it happened. And I'm like, yep. People got mad at me saying, Tim, you stand too close to the police. And I'm like, yes, I'm staying out of their way. They actually train you in heat programs, it's hostile environment training, to not stand in front of police lest you get shoved or shot at. You stand off to the side. You don't engage in the conflict. This is why I'm not going to make a video about every single little journalist or peaceful protester who got caught up in the riots. When you engage in this conflict, this is what happens. I'll talk about it here. Now, why am I highlighting the officers getting injured? For obvious reasons, man. The press in the mainstream news rarely does. Rarely does. There's a story from the New York Times that I have pulled up talking about Garrett Foster, who brought his gun to Austin and now he's dead. Do you know what they aren't telling you in this story? They say he was shot 3 times. The police in Austin have not identified the motorist who fatally shot him. What they're not telling you is that in all likelihood, Garrett fired first. Yeah. In the audio, let me show you Ian Miles Chong. He says, Black Lives Matter protester blocked the streets a car was trying to get through. One of the protesters, Garrett Foster, fired 5 shots at the vehicle with an AK-47 and missed. The driver fired back 3 times, killing him. Now, we haven't completely confirmed this, but in the video, you hear 5 very powerful bangs. I didn't know what happened at first. All I heard was a guy got shot. My assumption was the dude in the car pulled up, saw the guy with the gun, and shot him. When I heard the audio at first, the 5 bangs, I was thinking to myself, wow, that guy must have had a big gun. Some powerful, I'm at 45 or Desert Eagle or something, because those were huge bangs. Not that I'm a gun expert, but that was loud. I've heard handguns before. I've been watching a lot of videos as I recently became a gun owner, and those were powerful. As it turns out, most people are now speculating. The 5 initial rounds were from Garrett Foster's AK, and the dude then returned 3 shots from a handgun, killing him. But the media doesn't frame it that way. That's why I talk about the officers who are potentially permanently blinded or impaled or injured or hit in the head with bricks. If you don't treat these people like people, then people imagine them as demon monsters. That's not true. These are people same as anybody else. They have a job, they do right, they do wrong, call them out when they do wrong, the same as the protesters. What we want are real solutions. And if you keep treating the cops like they're demons, then every single cop, every brother, sister, father, mother, family member, cousin, I don't care, friend of these cops are going to say, stop attacking my friends. They're trying to keep the peace. Are all cops perfect? No. And many of them get away with committing crimes, and that's what we need to talk about. When they do, if one person lost their life at the hands of a cop who did wrong, we hold them accountable, and yes, we speak up. But too much of the media ignores the officers themselves who are being seriously injured and permanently maimed by the ongoing rioters, as if their lives don't matter. What about David Dorn, the retired police officer, police captain in Philly, who was killed over some TVs at a pawn shop? What about his life? You see, it's all political. You know what I care about? I care about people surviving and staying safe and an end to the violence. So forgive me if I don't make a video every single time some journalist gets shoved. I don't care. Look, they shouldn't be doing it. I get that. But how are you going to go in a conflict and be like, oh no, heavens, I was pushed? Really? How are you going to go into a conflict zone where you get hit with a beanbag and then be like, I can't believe the police are firing beanbags into the crowd and I was standing there and got hit? I wore a bulletproof vest in Ferguson. You know why? Because people had guns. Was I going to be like, I shouldn't have to wear this because the cops shouldn't be shooting anything? I shouldn't have to wear this because people who live here shouldn't be shooting at cops. No, I said, it happens. Take precaution. That's why people wear helmets. When the far left tries to pretend to be a protester, the cops aren't going to treat you like you're special. Even still, in all of this, they still actually provide some leeway to the journalists. If a cop is walking up upon a crowd and they see a group of people and they're all wearing dark colors and many of them are throwing things and you look just like them, the only difference, press on your helmet, and they don't see it, they're going to fire same as anybody else. This idea that they're like omniscient and know exactly who everyone is and everyone and what they're doing, to me, frankly absurd. But I see people saying, you know, these leftists on Twitter saying Tim Pool won't talk about, you know, the police abuses. Listen, what's happening in Portland are people going to the courthouse. If you choose to go to someone's property and then someone throws a brick and now you're in a riot, what am I supposed to say? Because I've said it. Leave or stop them. Stop the violent rioters or just don't engage. And guess what? Most of the peaceful protesters actually disperse, according to the reporting on the ground. That's what's important. But if you're going to stick around for whatever reason in a riot, then expect a riot. And I'm not going to sympathize with people over this. I'm sorry. It's part of the job. We can, if a cop says, hey, get the journalist, I'd be like, yo, that's not okay. But I'll tell you what did happen. A journalist got beaten up by Antifa and then blamed the feds for it. Not kidding. Follow Andy No on Twitter. You'll see it. I'll leave it there. I'm gonna get out of here, but I'll see you all tomorrow in the next segment coming up at 10 a.m. Thank you all so much for hanging out.